all tonight to a very special evening, a special lecture with a gentleman. I just had dinner with him, and let's say he has a very far-ranging mind, and will be sharing with us tonight some of his interesting ideas on how to quantify some of the crazy things that they choose to do. My name is Peggy Darien. I'm president of the Yale Club of Lower Fairfield County, and we're pleased to be able to sponsor Professor Ayres coming to talk here at Darien. Thank you for setting up this beautiful reception. Hopefully everyone's off the train, has been able to pick up some refreshments, but also this wonderful space. I live in New Canaan, and I have to tell you, we're very envious of your library here. So, and if there are any Yale alums in the area, the Yale Club of Lower Fairfield includes anyone undergraduate or graduate schools that graduated from Yale that live in the five-town area, pretty much Lower Fairfield, everybody except for Greenwich, who they have their own group. So if you have any questions about it, want to get involved, please see me, or Dr. Kelly in the back, who also helped organize this. But I will pass this over to Aaron, who will introduce Professor Ayres, and I hope you enjoy this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peggy, and thank you to the Yale Club of Lower Fairfield County for co-sponsoring this event with us tonight. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out on this rainy evening. My name is Erin Shea, and I'm the head of adult programming here at Darien Library. And I'd just like to mention that programs here are made possible by our annual Friends of the Library campaign. So thank you for your continued support to make programs like these available to the community. Tonight's guest, Ian Ayres, is a lawyer and an economist. He is the William K. Townsend Professor of Law at Yale Law School and a professor at Yale School of Management. He's the editor of Journal of Law, Economics, and Organization. Professor Ayres clerked for the Honorable James K. Logan of the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. He has previously taught at Illinois, Northwestern, Stanford, and Virginia law schools. Professor Ayres has published 9 books and more than 100 articles on a wide range of topics. In 2007, he published Super Crunchers: Why Thinking by Numbers is the New Way to Be Smart. He is also author of Straightforward: How to Mobilize Heterosexual Support for Gay Rights with Jennifer Duranda Brown, Optional Law: The Structure of Legal Entitlements, Insincere Promises, The Law of Misrepresented Intent with Gregory Class, and Why Not? How to Use Everyday Ingenuity to Solve Problems Big and Small with Barry Nailbuff. And he also told us at dinner that he co-writes pop songs with his 14-year-old daughter. So please join me in welcoming to Darien Library, Professor Ian Ayres.
Thanks for coming out. So I'm going to try to talk tonight about better ways to craft incentives to get things done. And I thought I'd start with a fairly simple question. And I'm going to ask you, not now, but in a second, to answer this en masse. So, if you trusted me to actually give you money, which would you prefer for me to give you $200 in 6 months or $300 in 7 months? And I'd like you to say either, I'm going to count to 3, and then I'd like you just to say either 200 or 300. 1, 2, 3. 300. Right? And this is an easy question. Almost everybody would prefer the $300, even though you have to wait an extra month. And what's interesting is when people, different people, are asked a similar question, they have much more varied response. Would you prefer $200 today versus $300 in 1 month? And a lot of people there say, God, that $200 right now, even though you notice it's waiting a month in both cases for an extra $100. And this visceral reaction is an example of present bias preferences, that it's hard to ignore cash that's dangling right in front of you. And not just cash, but just benefits. We want to push off. Part of present bias preferences is we want to procrastinate on the things that are unpleasant just a little bit into the future. We want to grab. This is really why I can't wait until evening to eat that last piece of chocolate cake.
Can pigeons read? This one gives every indication, because it's been taught to distinguish between 2 words and to behave appropriately.
You can see it says turn and then it says peck. And now when it says
He's
peck,
learned his different response to each sign by being
and this is a crude example. This is a Skinner box. A B.F. Skinner came up with this kind of behavior modification. These are personal incentives. And in fact, giving yourself carrots, or in this case birdseed, can be effective with regard to animals. It can be effective with regard to humans. But an interesting aspect about even these kinds of incentives is that they actually put pigeons in an experiment that was quite similar to the first set of questions that I started you out with. That they gave pigeons the choice about whether they wanted to have 2 pieces of seed or 4 pieces of seed, and they could double the amount of seed they were given if they were willing to wait 4 seconds. Kind of like waiting 1 month to get an extra $100. And it turns out that when the pigeons were asked to choose between waiting 12 seconds for 2 seeds or 16 seconds for 4 seeds, they were quite patient. And 90% of the time, the pigeons would wait double their food. By the way, pigeons care about sex and about eating. That's very important. Those are the 2 things very important to them. And this was an experiment that was repeated on pigeons thousands upon thousands of times. And this is, by the way, this was even the case, what I'm going to show you, that they would do this experiment and then 2 minutes later they would do it again. And the grad students and pigeons both work cheaply, and this is done, I think, 50,000 times on each one of these points. But part of the interesting aspect, the pigeons, like humans, became impatient when it was not a choice between 12 seconds versus 16 seconds, when they were asked, given the choice of waiting 2 seconds for 2 pieces of 2 seeds, or 6 seconds for 4 seeds. They couldn't bring themselves to to wait. But there's another experiment that actually did do. It's that the researchers here observed the pigeons pecking the wall instead of. By the way, in these experiments, there would be 2 different lights that peck the red light, and you get a small amount. Peck the other light, you get a large amount. And they would play non-random strategies. They would be patient in one place, but they noticed over here that the pigeons would dither. They would almost as if they were trying to resist, but then would cave in. And they actually, the scientists gave them another experiment where they gave them a 3rd light, which was a beak time light. That if you clicked on this light, it would disable your ability to cave to temptation. And it turned out that about a 1/3 of the pigeons started using this commitment device, where they would disable their ability to be tempted in the future. And I love this experiment because I think that humans are a lot like pigeons. That we have present bias preferences. And in fact, about a 1/3 of humans are willing to bring themselves to use commitment devices to help them get to a better place. And in fact, part of this talk is to see if I can raise that percentage from a 1/3 slightly higher in this room. So beak time applied to humans. And when I talk about commitment devices, let me start off very quickly and tell you I am massively conflicted here. I am a co-founder of a for-profit website called stick.com, where you can put money at risk that is forfeited if you don't stick to your goals. And with the way Stick works is you go and you pick out a goal to lose weight, to exercise. One of my favorite ones is the custom goal, which is really, the screen says, I commit to, and then there's an open text box where you can craft your own goal. And then you pick out, most interestingly, you can put some money at stake. So here's somebody who put at risk $100 for 12 reporting periods for a total of $1,200. You can even choose who decides whether or not you fulfilled your commitment. And so it can be an on your honor contract, or you can choose somebody else to be your referee to decide whether or not you succeeded. Something that I'll come back to, you can choose friends and supporters who will be emailed whether or not you succeeded. And the purpose of stick.com is to increase the price of Vice. Just by the way, to help you on this, it's stickk.com, 2 Ks. That suddenly, if you have that extra piece of cake, it might cost you some extra money. And Stick's been doing pretty well. Actually, now $10 million has been put at risk by our customers. We have over 100,000 registered users. And most importantly, there's about a 75% reported success rate. And that includes some, and it can even go to 85% when you have successful referees when you do some of this. And we've been working with lots of substantial organizations with platforms to help on corporate wellness. And in these corporate programs, besides putting money at risk that you could lose, corporations and often put carrots on the table to give you positive incentives. And the big idea here of Stick is might be just summed up in this very simple question. You know, if you are overweight and hoping to lose weight, which would you rather do? Lose a pound next week or lose $500? And most people would prefer to lose a pound than to lose $500. And that's the idea behind a diet plan that I produced called the $500 Diet. It is a seven-part program, 7-step program that at its core asks people to put $500 at risk each week, and that initially you I'll tell you more about that $500. The big idea behind the plan, just theoretically, before I get to the numbers of it, is that it's very different kind of a diet plan. Most plans, you know, focus on what you can put in your mouth, and especially in a group like this, you already understand that if you want to lose weight, you need to eat less or exercise more. That nobody repealed the second law of thermodynamics for you. That if you eat less and exercise more, I claim to you that information is not the problem. That the real problem is that people don't have the right incentives. It's more that they have present biased preferences. And I focus on trying to give you a mechanism to change your incentives. That's the central idea. And it's not just that I am a co-founder of Stick and a writer of this plan, but I've also used it personally. This is a chart of my historic weight. At one point I was at 205 pounds, and the red line was my daily weight, and the blue line is my forfeiture line. This is really what the $500 diet asks for, is that if you're overweight, you commit to lose a pound a week or forfeit. If the red line ever goes above the blue line, you can forfeit money. And to tell you the truth, this first part of the graph where I lost weight quickly is nothing to be proud of. All right, and it's not healthy to lose more than 2 pounds a week, and I was losing weight too quickly. But what is and indeed, one thing that I might recommend is that if you enter into a commitment contract to lose weight, you might simultaneously enter into a commitment contract not to lose more than 3 pounds a week. That would be not a safe way to live. What is very unusual is how flat this was for the second half of the year. And I'll be showing you some later graphs about that. And this idea of long-term maintenance is one of the powers of this book. And stepping back, while the $500 diet seems to have dollars at the center of it. And yes, financial incentives matter, but the larger thesis of carrots and sticks is that crafting effective incentives is more than just setting the right price.
The two pigeons are either end of a small ping pong table. One pigeon.
This is the voice of B.F. Skinner.
Knocks it toward the other pigeon.
And he's taught the pigeons how to play ping pong using incentives. And you notice, it realizes once it gets a point, it can then go down and get food. So my claim isn't that financial incentives are unimportant. Setting the right price is important, but to be effective, you should take into account other dimensions of incentive success. And three things I want to emphasize right now in this talk: other people matter, mindfulness matters, and framing matters, as well as getting the right prices.
And just before they were hired, she and the rest were offered cash to walk away.
That's the billionaire owner, founder of Zappos, an internet shoe company. And those other people in the background are new employees. And Zappos does something very unusual. They train people for about 3 weeks, and then at the end of the training, they bring them into a room like this, and the CEO offers them $2,000 to quit. But it's only a one-time offer. They have to accept it that day. And interesting thing about this perversity, normally you'd think incentives. I call this an anti-incentive because normally you'd think I want to incentivize you to keep working. I would give you a bonus to stay on. Here it's offering people money to quit. And one of the reasons that they do this is they say, well, if you would take such an offer, they don't want you to work there. But the other thing that impacted this is that it actually keeps people on the job longer. 99% of the new trainees turn down the offer. And having turned down the offer, nobody quits in the next 4 months, because you'd feel like an idiot to quit for nothing when you could have quit for $2,000. And so empirically, giving the power of resisted temptation is a new way to bring home that it's not just the traditional dollar incentives that matters. And if you can do anti-incentives with regard to Zappos, you might do this at other places. There's a famous study of Israeli daycares where a series of daycares had this problem that parents were showing up late, and so they decided to put on fines, that you would be fined a certain amount of money if you showed up late for your kids. And perversely, they found that parents started showing up late more often. And this has been written about in Freakonomics and other places. And part of the reaction of this is, oh, the incentives crowded out guilt. That before you'd feel guilty for showing up late, but now you could just pay this fine, this price, and people started doing it more. And the implication of this of many people was that you should just stop having fines when it would crowd out guilt. But Zappos, I think, tells us a different story. That let's say that you're a parent at this daycare, and I say, by the way, there's good news. If you show up late, I'm going to pay you $10, but it's going to come out of the salary of the lowest paid worker here. Okay, and instead of this puts your guilt on steroids. And so it's a way. It's an example of how other people matter. That you care not just about money, but about where the money is coming from.
Hey, my name's James Hammond. I'm from Auckland, New Zealand, and I'm selling my smoking habit on the internet.
So this is a strange thing. Just to repeat, this is, by the way, an advertising executive from New Zealand, and he actually put this up on the internet. He's auctioning his smoking addiction. You know, what would that mean? Why would anybody pay to buy his smoking addiction? What does that even mean? Well, less poetically, and I just love the way that he puts this. What he entered into was a commitment contract where he promised to pay anybody to forfeit $100 if he smoked a cigarette, any time for the rest of his life. And what he was auctioning was the rights to receive any forfeiture money. And I, inspired just by this guy.
Your time starts now.
Oh, by the way, you'd want to, before you bid on this auction, you want to think, is he really a smoker? And he also put this up. Now, I can't throw a lit cigarette at my face like that. Okay, he's in just about half a second. I think he gave me a lot of indicia that he actually is a smoker, and I was inspired by him, but I made some changes here. So he did an auction on the New Zealand eBay with regard to smoking. I did this. This is an actual screenshot of what I did on eBay. I said, buy in Ayres' right to gain weight and earn between $0 and $26,000. Now, see, he didn't give a maximum amount because to him there was no maximum. It was $100 for the rest of his life per cigarette. I did it for 1 year. Remember my $500 diet. I had been putting $500 at risk for years. $500 at risk each week. I've been doing this for a number of years. I decided for 1 year to put this at risk, and since there are 52 weeks in a year, it could be between $0, it could go up to $26,000 if I forfeited each and every week. And this is a very unusual bid item. This was the description. Not only said that, look, I want to disclose to you, I have a book to promote, I am a co-founder of this company, and I said, this is a quote, beware, it would be foolhardy to bid very much on this item because I have every incentive not to forfeit. You're more likely to get no money for this. Nonetheless, what happened? This auction on eBay, there were 23 bidders, 45 bids, and I was paid $282 to make a commitment to keep the weight off. And this is another way that other people matter because they might pay you money to make commitments. And you might actually, and this is really important because remember, people have a hard time turning down money that is dangled in front of them. So if you have a friend that you really like, okay, and who has just either quit smoking, let's just say it's just quit smoking, and it's after 12 weeks and they're bragging to you that they just quit smoking. And you might say, and you might ask them, well, what's the chance you're going to take it up? No, I'm not going to ever smoke again. And well, and actually this happened to me with a pretty close family friend. I said, well, this would be a good time for you to enter into a state contract. I actually have Lisa Sanders, who writes the diagnosis column for the New York Times. She's a family friend of mine. She's been under a commitment contract with her best. She quit smoking 20 years ago, and if she ever smokes, she has to give her friend $10,000. Okay? And she hasn't smoked for 20 years. Why don't you lock this in? And she said, and this friend of mine said no. But what about saying, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $200 if you'll make a commitment. You could do what the person on eBay that I didn't know about. By the way, a difference between me and James Herman. James Herman said, let's do this auction, I'll donate the money to the New Zealand Cancer Society. I said, I'm going to keep your damn money because I wanted this person to help keep me in line. So other people matter in this way. Other people matter also because we care what they know. In Japan, they have this kind of icky, sexist virtual wives that will nag you if you don't eat correctly. You can choose which of these virtual wives you want. Even virtual avatars, we care about what they think about us. All the more, we care about what humans think about us. I told you before that there are these custom design commitments. I had a great time reading them and in writing this book and contacting some of the people that made them, there's one guy I talked to who had made a commitment to go to church. And it was working great for him. He put money at risk. He had his girlfriend as his referee. And after about 3 months, something came up and he couldn't make it. And he admitted to me on the phone that he and his girlfriend lied about going to church because they didn't want to forfeit money. And this is strange because there's another referee that he believes in that is omniscient and would know about it. He lied to me. And it shows you there's a kind of safety in numbers. It's partly his story, and it's one of the big take-homes that I didn't know about before writing the book. It's great to have a referee. It's really great to put money at risk. But if you want to add a third level of accountability in the stick contract, put 5 of your friends on as, give the site email address of 5 of your friends. And the problem is that people choose as their referees loved ones that unconditional love is not what you want from your referee. Right? You want somebody who's fair. But if he had put his priest and 3 members of the vestry on as friends on this commitment, he wouldn't have lied. Because they so if you're doing commitments, another way that you care about other people and having 3, 5 friends, co-workers learn about your success is important. When I say there's safety in numbers, you can even go more extreme. This is the Withings, the Y-Things, Wi-Fi enabled scale. You now can get it at Apple stores. By the way, it's an Apple-like marvel of simplicity. In about 15 minutes, I'm not very computer savvy, but in about 15 minutes I had it not only sync to my Wi-Fi, but I had created a special Twitter account called Ian Waite, and when you this Wi-Fi scale makes it easier to be honest because you stand on it and it automatically tweets your weight and for the public to see. And other people matter and letting them know about it. So, and other people matter in yet another way that we care about whether they're helped or hurt. I told the story about the daycare. You worry about taking money. Well, one of the ways that STIC takes into account how people care about who's getting or losing money is with regard to anti-charity. So you can put money at risk, $500 at risk, and you could designate an individual who gets it. After the eBay auction, the person who won that auction I designated as the recipient of any forfeitures. But you can also choose what STIC calls anti-charities. And can anybody tell me what this is a picture of? The hint is it's the most popular anti-charity at STIC.com. No. And some members of people have at least a passing connection to this. This is the George W. Bush Presidential Library, and this is a partial list. We are, by the way, not partisan. We have also have many people that use the William Jefferson Clinton Presidential Library, and we have. If I didn't show you this, you might even be able to guess what the pro-gun rights and anti-gun rights views are. For our English users, we have football clubs, because some of that is anti-charities, because some of them couldn't imagine giving to clubs that they don't support, or teams that they don't support. And yet another way, an example of how commitment contracts or incentives don't always work. This is a true story, and this is definitely the guy's name. This is Simon Usborne. He's a writer for the Independent newspaper in London, and he emailed me and asked me for to do an interview with him, to talk to me about Super Hunters, another book that I wrote. And at last, and he didn't call me when he said he would, and he got back to me and said, "Oh, could we reschedule the interview?" I said, "Sure." He blew me off the second time. Rescheduled, blew me off 3 times, and he still wasn't done. And he said, "I know you're probably really upset at me, and but are you willing to do another, are you willing to talk to me, I think, next Tuesday at 10 o'clock? And I said, yes. I said, but how about, and this is quoting from an email that I sent to him, okay? How about promising to give 50 pounds to the Multiple Sclerosis Society, my mom died of MS, if my office phone doesn't ring by 10:05. Okay? And by the way, my mom did die of MS. I was trying to signal to them that I was serious about this. And his very short email in response was, your phone will ring. Okay? Any lawyers in the audience? So do we have a contract when he says your phone will ring? I think so too. Ambiguous words of acceptance. Now, by the way, this is complicated by the way, I teach contracts law. I'm with you on this. I think it's going to be, since he's sitting in England when he sends this, it's going to be the law of acceptance that counts, and so it'll be the law of England. But I think what's really important here is the psychology of it. I think he was trying to thread the needle, so to speak. That he wanted to do enough to get me committed to do this, but he wanted to give himself an out. And in fact, the dirty dog didn't call and didn't give money to the MS. So this is a little bit of payback for Simon Usborne. And part of what's going on here is that, though, it was on my fault for not being more explicit, and this was happened before STIC existed, but nowadays, one of the reasons that other people matter, some people respond to this saying, well, like, I got the idea, but I just don't have a weight problem. I don't have problems procrastinating. I don't need STIC. Okay, well, first of all, I don't believe you, because almost everybody has some problems in some area of their life. But even if you are that rare person, you still need STIC because you interact with other people that have trouble keeping appointments. Like dentists, I was asking, do you have people that miss 3 appointments in a row? He said, 3? I have people that miss 5 appointments in a row and still want to get an appointment. And I said, well, so how about after the 3rd time you say, I'll take an appointment if you put some money at risk at STIC and make me the referee. And so part of this is other people matter in the sense that they matter because you want them to make better commitments to you. Second big reason that dimension on how you can improve incentives is to make mindfulness commitments.
Lily Wilson, a recovering like addict. The worst I've ever seen, so like bad, that the entire 8th grade started calling her like Lily, like Wilson, until I made my classroom a like-free zone, and she could not speak for days.
So this guy is a poet and a teacher, as you hear in that performance art. And this strategy, though, of making his class a like-free zone, it's not one that I support. It's not such great pedagogy not to have your student speak for days. And I, instead, my children also were afflicted by this disease of speaking like inappropriately. And this might actually be one of the more helpful things from this whole talk, okay, is this idea, is I used a mindfulness kind of commitment, incentive, that when my kids inappropriately use the word like in conversation, so I was like all upset, and she like and whenever they say it inappropriately, I will just quietly interject disco, disco 1, disco 2, disco 3. And what they learned very quickly was how often they were saying like inappropriately. If you get up to disco 37 within a single conversation, it drives home and makes them mindful of this issue. Now, what happened? I would say there were 3 stages of reaction. The first was upset at me. They did not like to be corrected this way. And the second, and that didn't surprise me, but they're used to, I've been fighting various fights along these lines. The second stage, though, was a surprise. They didn't stop saying like inappropriately, but they started saying disco themselves. They would say, I like disco, went to the store. And the third stage is they gained more control over it. And by the way, my goal wasn't to stop them from ever speaking like. I just wanted them to be bilingual so that they could turn it on or turn it off. And I have students at Yale Law School who cannot turn it off when they're doing a moot court argument to judges. And that is bad. So this idea of mindfulness, it's actually very important with regard to weight loss. This is a wonderful randomized study that Weight Watchers Foundation did, which I want to praise Weight Watchers, which has really got on the train of doing modern social science. This is a randomized trial where a bunch of people that were obese started with average BMIs of 31, were randomized either into a traditional informational, here's a set of information, eat less and exercise more packet, or this dotted line, they got a chance to go to Weight Watchers. And you can see Weight Watchers has the people losing a lot more weight. But it's sadly, and this happens, this is not the rank on Weight Watchers, but this has been done in randomized studies with regard to Atkins and the zone diet. Lots of people who diet can successfully lose weight for 3 months or 6 months. I myself have done it 4 or 5 times in my life. Many of us are yo-yoers. This is, if you're a yo-yoer in dieting, you're not alone. That is the basic rule of dieting, that people lose weight, and it's for 3 to 6 months, and that they then gain it back on. And after 2 years, the Weight Watchers did have a positive effect, but the people had lost about 6 pounds relative to the control group. The control group had lost exactly no weight. They'd gone back exactly to their pre-experiment weight. And what's going on here? Well, I think the strongest evidence is that there's a lack of mindfulness, that you just get tired of keeping to pay attention and you stop getting on the scale. And that then you get scared to get on the scale, and you're not on it for a while more, and you then gain back 5 or 6 pounds, and then you're really scared and you say just screw it, and you're into another bad cycle. And so one of the things that we could think about is, instead of a $500 diet that is it doesn't have to be that large an amount, but it also doesn't have to be tied to weight. You might instead make a commitment about behaviors, and most specifically a commitment to be mindful. And indeed, researchers at Brown have done wonderful randomized experiments in what they call a shock regain program, where centrally there's a commitment just to keep staying on, keep getting on the scale on a regular basis. One of the best ways to not to go through this. So mindfulness can matter. And the last thing that I want to talk to you today is just a few stories about experiments that you really point out that how you frame your incentives matters. Framing matters. Here's a great example that comes from Colombia. They did a randomized experiment at a coffee shop. Half the customers at random received this loyalty card, pay for 10 cups of coffee and your 11th cup is free. The other half of customers got this pre-printed card, buy 12 coffees, and then your 13th one is free. But these cards, you had to do 2 more, but the first 2 were pre-stamped. So they are economically identical. Both cases, you have to do buy 10 things. Okay? Turns out people got their coffee 18% faster with this card. And this was inspired by what people had seen with regard to rats on ramps. That rats run faster as they get closer to the cheese. And that if you can, we have this progress illusion. If you can frame an incentive as one that you've already made progress on, you're more likely to complete it. So if you're going to do a diet, put rocks in your pocket before you do your initial weight. And then you come in the next day and say, oh, I already lost 3 pounds. Okay, that's a way to increase your chance. Here's a second framing goal. This has to do with a AIDS, a charity that was trying, a Korean charity that was trying to gather money to support AIDS orphans in Africa. And this is a translation to English, where these were mailings that had the same request, except they framed it differently. Half the people had mailings that said, to date we've raised 4,900 and our goal is 10,000. They actually have this kind of a graphic in there. Half of them had, instead of a to-go condition, they said that this campaign is 10,000, we still have 5,080 to go. These are the actual numbers that they use. And the question here is, which of these frames was more effective at getting people to give money to the charities? So can I get somebody to go? To go. And that's great. Well, and you've just participated in a mild test yourself, and this speaks well of you. So it turns out the people who cared more about the charity gave more under this condition. And particularly, they divided people, the way that they tell this, people who had already given to the charity gave more when they saw this than when they saw this. People who hadn't given to the charity gave more when they gave here than when they gave here. And what this is to think about your internal commitment. And just to give you another application, I use this when I am swimming laps. Some days I try to swim a mile when I get in the pool, and when I am when I'm feeling more committed to the activity, I count down. And when I am feeling less committed, when it's a drudge, I count up. So that framing can help you when you're halfway through a workout too. So I think with here, I might stop just to make sure I give you guys enough chance to open this thing up. The big story here that I'm trying to bring through, definitely stick.com, it is helpful to put money at risk. To follow through on your commitments, but that it's having effective incentives is more than just setting the right price. There are a lot of different ways that other people matter, mindfulness matters, and framing matters. And I'd love to take some questions if you have them. Yeah?
I wonder if this applies to alcoholics, because some of them may not be very honest, some of them may be in denial, some of them may say, I'm a referee.
Yeah.
I actually lie to the referee.
Yeah. I have, and I've also studied the research about it. So one of the great commitment devices for alcoholics is antabuse. And if antabuse is this liquid, you drink it once and you're not going to, and it makes you violently ill if you ingest alcohol for about the next 5 days to 7 days. And so one of the things that frankly, it seems to me to be underutilized. That the idea that you could actually combine antabuse with a commitment contract, so that you come in on a Thursday or a Friday afternoon and so let's say Quest Diagnostics, which by the way, 85% of the population lives within 20 miles of a Quest Diagnostics, and you ingest your antabuse. Now the problem is that alcoholics who are planning for a binge don't show up. But you at least know immediately when they don't show up. And then you have an automated system where your support group understands them. Yeah, the antabuse would have to be, but it could be combined with an alert system. But that's I'm talking about these kinds of commitment contracts can be used for addictions, including heroin addictions, but don't have as high success rates. And about it is that if you put too much pressure on a commitment contract, it can fail. And part of what I try to structure here is that there are these different types of accountability, and you can get more power if you can spread, you have the general power of the addiction that you're trying to overcome. And then you have these various types of accountability. There's the threat of losing money, there's this threat of losing faith with your friends, there's a threat other people, anti-charities. One of the powerful things about an anti-charity is it puts it in a different category than just money. The idea that that this policy issue that you care deeply about would end up profiting because of your action is another way to help keep people in line. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there an application here in the stock market as in the buy low and sell high phenomenon?
Well, yes, a couple different people have done commitments to be more disciplined savers. So that's one of the ways. Let me relate to this. And so I think the saving application is actually easier. So you commit that you're going to forfeit $50 unless you save $100. And then and that $50 is going to go to some charity you don't like. That's been very effective at getting people to save more money because they don't. Then you're doubling down the loss. It can also be. I've seen people that have made commitments to be a little bit more disciplined, not to churn their investments so much, so that if you want to, if you've had a problem that you get nervous and you dump your stock too fast, you can commit toward more of a buy and hold strategy. So that would be at least two ways that you might apply these rules. Other questions? No.
I was just going to wondering, are any of them structured for where you get some kind of a payoff? Wait, did you say that? Like where you get something? I had, I was at a firm where there was an interesting insurance policy. I don't know if you've heard of Destiny Health Insurance, but they had a thing where you would get points for doing, healthy behaviors, like a certain amount of points for walking to work, a certain amount of points, and you had to get, once you got into these higher ranges of points, you would get, you could get things, and you could end up actually getting like vacations, and that led to another healthy behavior because you actually take vacations, so and it was amazing how when I was there, I got my blood pressure, I like every single thing, and it's funny that, it dropped off a little bit when I was just on the regular insurance policy sometimes.
Yeah, so even though I've talked tonight mostly about sticks, the book is called Carrots and Sticks for a good reason. So both the website has this premium platform where employers can give out wellness points for doing good things. One of the reasons that I focus on the stick side is because of what behavioral economists call loss aversion. That people work harder to avoid losing $100 than they do to gain $100. It hurts twice as much to work, and this has been demonstrated in lots of different contexts. If you do, but employers face great resistance to imposing penalties. It hurts the relationship, so they are kind of constrained to using positive incentives, to using the carrots. If you do use the carrots, the two big lessons that I didn't really tell you about, but right now I'll tell you, is that lotteries work better than non-lotteries, and that there is even particular kinds of lotteries, but people work harder for a chance in a big item than a certainty of a smaller item. So you work better for, and secondly, people work harder for certain kinds of non-financial carrots than for financial. Even though people, if you survey them, say, no, I prefer to get money, if you then actually do a randomized experiment, they work harder, and the kinds of things you want to get them are either are the kinds of things they wouldn't get for themselves, but that they will be memorable and that they can brag to their friends about. So an extra vacation day, spa day, some piece of technology that a young person might know about that I wouldn't, that I would have known about 10 years ago. You might have given them a nap, but whatever it is that's hot today, don't ask me about what that is. Yes.
I'm curious what you think about, I think there's some serious academic research out there that suggests that carrots and sticks are actually counterproductive to the best motivation. I'm thinking of Ed Deasy, theory of self-determination. How does all that square with this stuff?
Well, so when some of the research suggests that the carrots and sticks may be less effective when there are tasks that require creativity and problem solving. And so if I say, here's a puzzle,
right,
and you're going to lose a month of income, or I'll give you an extra month of income. This has actually been done in India, and you have trouble doing the puzzle when you keep thinking, my God, I could get an extra month of income, and you close down, right? And but I think that there are a lot of willpower issues that aren't deeply about creativity. So that's one of the issues to do this. If it's something where people are, and so ask yourself, is it generally a place where you're going to get the yips and trembling hands? Is that going to be it? One of the slides that I didn't get to here, which I might even power forward. There's an entire chapter of the book that lays out about a dozen reasons why this is a tool you'll sometimes want to keep in the toolbox, and that there are people. And this includes people become overcommitted, and that they take on too many commitments. They don't take on wise commitments. They put themselves into too high a risk of falling, and so. Before proceeding on these things, you'd want to make sure you take a look at the caveats carefully. Yeah?
Are there any caveats as to using this with adolescents? And also, do you find that carrots or sticks generally work better?
Yeah, and you mean a medical license? I mean a medical license.
Adolescents.
Good. No, because I think about this. Seriously, when we were putting together this site, you wanted to care carefully about not doing bad in the world. And so just to talk a little bit about this, besides the ubiquitous requirement that you have to be at least 13 to register, you have to be 18 to put money at risk, but we won't take commitments for deleterious behavior. Won't take anorexic commitments and things like that, and we won't let people put too much money at risk. Is another dimension. But it's kind of interesting. And by the way, we also have an out in all of our contracts that we have a fax form that if you have a physician say that this would be not good for your health, we'll just tear up the commitment contract. Which, by the way, you can also lose your house if you don't pay your mortgage, but you don't get out of your mortgage because a doctor says it would be bad for your health, and there actually have been foreclosure suicides. So there are other places where we don't give people out of their commitments. The question, since there are these categories of people that are making bad commitments or might not know enough about it, and indeed I think of my users, I have too many of them that are choosing their wife or their fiance or girlfriend or boyfriend as a referee. Or I wish I could get our people to make a little bit better commitments. There might be some reason to take seriously to ponder carefully before you make an ill-advised commitment. Partly, one of the ways to think about this is if you're making a year-long commitment, are you going to be near the internet the whole time? Are you going to want to take a week off, a commitment holiday for a vacation or for a wedding or something like that? So just thinking about having the right level of flexibility is also important. Part of what I described in here is how you can actually build in a little bit of flexibility even inside a commitment process. Other questions? Yeah.
Does your site help you identify the proper stick?
A little bit. I like, you know, so yes, and we'll, you know, we will nag you if you want. We'll give you lots of options, and we have some materials on advice. What I would ideally like, and we're just not there yet, is if you went to the site, what I'd love to have is when you put in a weight loss contract, I'd like there to be a bell curve that pops up and saying this is our best guess of the probability of outcomes of where your weight will end up. And I'd like to give them some recommendations. But if you did these three things, it would shift down here. And we're not. The site has it there verbally, but it's not as analytically optimized. But in some ways, this book and the diet plan are my step-by-step plans on suggestions on how you craft them better. Yeah.
It interests me that with backgrounds in law and economics, you've gone deeply into psychology, whereas psychology as a field has really moved away from behavioral modification through talk therapy into being sort of a pure pharmacological model in many cases.
Yes.
I don't really know what my question is, but I'm
How did I get here? Right?
How do you get there, and do you have psychiatrists and psychologists ever looking at any of these participants' behavior to say that has nothing, you know, this person needs medication to do what they want to do?
Yeah, well, and even there, though, commitment contracts to take medication again could be might be a useful analog. Part of me, of how I got here, is, and I say this in the diet booklet, is I think that we've ceded to medicine and to science too much the idea of weight loss, when it's centrally not about, I'll say this, it's not centrally about science. It's not about the information that scientists bring to the table. And I think it's time I want to give both law and economics a chance. Those are two things I know about. I helped draft the first contracts that were used at stick.com. That's using the law part and thinking about the economics, including the behavioral economics. That's how to give people better incentives. And while psychiatry definitely is not pharmacological, still in academic psychology, it's really, there's a melding of behavioral economics and academic psychology. That's what I'm participating in here. Yeah.
So what's the reaction of some of the people who come to your site fail?
Yeah.
Have they been like you, or do they
suing you? Surprisingly, no lawsuits, and you know, so you can even do kind of the math here. We've got $10 million put at risk, and that would be $2 million in forfeitures. About would be a ballpark figure. And people, by the way, this is implemented by people giving us their credit cards, and it's just a surprisingly people fess up to it, and the idea that you get 80% reported success rates. And by the way, we're working with Stanford. One of the things that Yale will not let me do is number crunching on my own site. I can't run a randomized experiment on that. So we've let Stanford professors do that. So we're doing some experiments to get not just self-reported, but third-party reported experience on what the success rate is on this. Yeah.
How do you pay for this?
How
does it pay for itself?
Yeah. So two big revenue models is one, the corporate wellness programs, and Staples did this for its customers. By the way, Staples is very savvy about it. They realized one of the barriers that consumers have to going to Staples is procrastination, that they want to upgrade their router, but other things, or they want to get onto QuickBooks, but other things get in the way. So they paid Stick 6 figures to set up a commitment program, which with which is not with sticks, but with carrots. And you get a certain number of points for create. And it could be, and it wasn't all buy things here, but you make a commitment to revise your resume. And there were a variety of these things, and so we get a bunch of our money from corporate sponsors or use our premium platform. The other half is we have 3 kinds of forfeitures. When you put money at risk, you can designate that it goes to an individual, which is by giving us an email address. You can designate that it goes to a generic set of charities that we choose, and we don't tell you what they are because I don't want you to think too much about them. Because if I tell you what they are, then you might say, oh, I wanted to support that charity anyway. I want to keep you in the dark about that. Or you can give it to an anti-charity. All right? If you designate an individual, we take no money. Matter of fact, we lose money because we have to pay the credit card fee. If you designate a generic charity, we take 19% of that. If you designate an anti-charity, we take 29% of that.
It's found money.
There you go. Well, whether they care or not, it's in our contracts, and so that's enough to keep us alive, and we're growing, and so that's the answer to that. Yeah, and there may be good news to report in the very near future. Yeah.
So you mentioned that in the context of creativity, there's one scenario where characteristics might be detrimental to the outcome. What's the reason why people are having trouble with that anxiety? Kind of not so much goal-oriented as it's a process-oriented problem.
Yeah.
And adding a price to the device, again, would only serve to increase the anxiety.
Yeah.
So make you more paralyzed to achieve that outcome. How could you deal with that?
So there might be some people where you just wouldn't want to use this, but and it relates to something I said before. I have a friend who used to be an Overeaters Anonymous. She had great anxiety, has great anxiety over eating, and she said, I'm really into your site, and I just couldn't do it. I was just so crazy with anxiety. And so, but my reaction is, don't make the commitment over weight. Make it over getting on the scale. And you're anxious about getting on the scale, get yourself on, and by the way, this lighting scale, doesn't have to tweet to the world. It can just, one of the beautiful things that it does, it can just tweet to a private account so that you keep a record of what's been happening. And that you actually know, and it has beautiful graphs that it produces. And so, at least that shouldn't produce the same kind of anxiety. Or make a commitment to read a diet book. I mean, to say there's no behaviors there may not be any behaviors, but anyway, to me there's a broader range where you might. And by the way, you might not want it to be a cliff of loss, but you might want to give yourself a benefit. Look, if I get on the scale, so it's less anxiety producing to have carrots than to have the anxiety. So there are some issues that you might. If you do this, you get to buy a new top, something like that. Yeah.
I quickly looked at the site today, and it says you don't have to put up money.
That's right.
How does that work?
Yeah. So you're in control of which of these types of accountability. So if you want, we'll just nag you. If you want to put up money, the wimpiest thing you can do is put up no money and have it be an on your honor, self-refereed contract where you're just making a commitment, a promise to yourself, and you're going to referee it yourself, and you don't have to let anybody else in the world. You have complete control over how private or non-private the commitment contract is. Okay, so but you can add to that. You can make it public to the world that you're making this commitment contract. You can give us email addresses and we'll alert people whether you succeed or not. You can put money at risk. You can have somebody else be your referee. So we're trying to let people choose what types. And there's I didn't say this before, but there's this huge tension between getting people to put in the right kind of accountability that will be effective in the future, and getting them to actually agree to that today. The participation is often at war with what's going to be effective in the back end. And it's one of the reasons that, by the way, one of the bigger innovations, which is what is this idea of you can combine carrots and sticks in an interesting way. Give yourself a carrot or give a friend a carrot in order to make an ex post commitment. Help them get over the participation moment. Right? And frankly, here's if you want to help somebody lose weight, get them into if you do the $500 diet, you'll lose weight. But what's really going to be important here, you can lose weight on any diet for 3 months. The bigger important is get them to make a commitment for month 6 to month 12. And actually you need it for there's a lot of bad news in this diet, okay? So it's a very depressing thing. You have to keep the weight off for 2 years, and very, very few people do that. We also have, there's only one weight loss strategy that has good empiricism behind it. It's not the $500 diet. Anybody know what the one weight loss strategy is that works? Surgery.
Lap band.
Yeah, lap band. Only thing that works. Okay, and it works really well. Now, by the way, if you're going to try something, what is really at the heart of the lap band? It's a commitment. See, once you get the lap band, it's painful if you eat too much. All right? And it turned out, so if you wanted to have, and there's an interesting thing about the lap band. It's permanent. It is portable. And so if you wanted to have something that might be successful without cutting you, you might want to have another commitment device that is potentially permanent and portable, that goes with you as you walk around the world. So that's one of the reasons. I don't have that kind of empiricism that's on the lap band, but it's one of the reasons that commitment, information isn't the problem when we look at the lap band. It's just getting people giving them better incentives not to eat too much is kind of the approach that I'm selling here. Thank you very much. Really.